Hey, it's Tom, and today I want to show you a quick tutorial on how to build a teleprompter app in React Native. In the beginning, I will just quickly explain you what is teleprompter. So a lot of YouTubers, especially those who are most likely talking or spending a lot of time talking in front of the camera, just like I was talking recently in my couple of videos, buy something called a teleprompter. And teleprompter is a device that allows you to put it on your camera, take it off, there's some magic mirror, and then you put your iPad or iPhone or any other phone right here. And as you see, you should be able to see, yeah, I hope it's not mirrored. And you see mirrored text. Oh my god, I put it the wrong way. One second. Yeah, you put it like this, and then you can press play and you can read the text, and it's not visible in the camera, so only the person who is in the front of the camera is seeing that. By the way, I bought this small teleprompter, and the app that was delivered with that is, to be honest, horrible. Like the UI, the UX is pretty bad. Anyway, I thought that because I started learning React Native at the beginning of the year, it might be worth to build some simple proof of concept. And because of that, I thought that a teleprompter app might be a pretty good example to be used and to build the app. So yeah, I decided to build the app because it's interesting. You have to scroll the text, you have to mirror that, you have to just simply manage that like in a to-do list. And I decided to build it in React Native and using TypeScript. So we can now switch to the code because that's what's the most interesting part for you probably. Okay, so we are now in the VS Code, and I created a pretty simple template for React Native. The template was an example probably delivered with the React Native package, or I just copied that from the Microsoft documentation. Sorry, from Facebook documentation. I copied the TypeScript config from Microsoft. Anyway, there's a pretty simple package, JSON, in which we have the React Native gesture handler, React Native reanimated for some animations, safe area context, and native screens. Those are all probably coming with the React Native. The gesture handler was probably added later. React, those are the configs for Prettier and Aslint. Then I also added the TypeScript, as I mentioned, types for React Native, because by default React Native doesn't have types for TypeScript. And then I added a couple packages with React navigation to be able to navigate between the screens, and then a couple packages from React Native community. There's a slider to control the speed of scrolling the text, and the masked view to just show pop-ups. And then there is also async storage, because I decided to make the storage for texts that will be presented persistent, and async storage seems like the way to go for this kind of simple texts. And right now we can switch to the code. So at first we have a pretty simple app TSX. The extension TSX is caused by I used the TypeScript, not JSX, because it's no longer JavaScript. Under the hood it is, but we use TSX to be just clear. Anyway, as I mentioned, I used the React Native navigation. So I created a navigation container, and the initial route is called home. And there are only two screens in the app. The first screen in this tag is home. It's the home component. And the second one is the prompter. This is the most interesting part of the app because this one contains the displaying, mirroring, and everything else for working. Okay, so maybe let's start with the home screen. Home screen, to be honest, there are imports, but the whole source code is of course available in the link down in the description of the video. So if you will miss something, then you can always just clone that from my GitHub repository and you will be up to date and you will see all the details. There are just imports, styles. It's not important for us at this moment. And what is important for us at this moment is that we have a pretty simple view. We can actually skip the models as for now because there are two models. I will explain them in a moment. In general, the only view that user will see is the flat list of the stored texts. Let me maybe just start the app so I can explain it to you. Okay, there is an Xcode. Okay, so yeah, as you see, there is a flat list of the texts. This is the list, and when we will we'll press that, we'll switch to the prompter app. But data is the array of scripts, and the array we use state to store the scripts. There is a set scripts to update that, and as I mentioned, we use async storage. So when we open the app to get it from the async storage, I decided to use effect. It's here. So in the use effect, we have a function called fetch data because it's async, because we are using async storage, and it cannot be directly put into use effect because it's expecting a normal non-async function. So I just created an array function. Within that, I put the fetch data and call that immediately. And that's async function. Anyway, we just call the get all scripts, and get all scripts is a function written in utils.tsx, and it's pretty straightforward. So we store the scripts in a form of an array. It's really the basic version of like any to-do list. Because we only store the texts, so I thought that the logic that might be easily translated into the to-do list might be good. So we import async storage, and we try to get the item with the key scripts. If it's null, then we just return an empty array. If it's not null, then we parse this JSON because it's stored not as an array but as a JSON array because we store a string. So we stringify those all elements and the whole array. This is how it looks with the add script. Okay, we'll go back to this in a moment. So we call the get all scripts. We get the array because this is returning an array. And we set it to our scripts variable. We do the same with the default font size, default scrolling speed, but we'll go back to that in a moment. So when we have the scripts, we use flat list, and then we just call the render item to render the element of the list, the thing you see here. The separator component is invisible, and the key extractor, so the list has to know which element it is. So we just create a template string and put the key and the index, and that's the unique key for each element of the list. Right now we are interested in the render item, and the render item is a function that's taking the text, it's trimming that to the max length of 100 characters. If it's longer than 100 characters, we just add we just cut it and then add 3 dots at the end. Otherwise, we just put the whole text. And then we render just a script list item, which is a JSX element. And we provide it title on press, because when we press that, we just want to go to the prompter screen, actually. But we'll go back to this in a moment. And also we have handle delete, because we allow to delete those items. We'll also cover that in a second. Okay, so let's go to the script list item. And script list item is under components, and this is a separated component. It has some own styles, some own imports, and there is an interface that we have seen in just a moment ago. So we have to provide a title, which is type of string, on press, which is gesture responder event, and then handle delete, which is just an function which is not returning anything. We just want to be aware that it's being called, and so we can handle that, because handle delete is an async function, and we are just calling remove script. Remove script is also in the utils. It's working exactly like the get all scripts or add scripts. We just fetch all the scripts, splice the array to remove the element, and then we set the scripts once again to update that. Okay, so we have this. In case of script list item, the most important and thing is probably the action, which is enabling us the delete feature, because except from that, there is just a simple return with swipeable item. There is a reference to the swipeable row. The friction, enable trackpad to fingers gesture. All those features are connected with this button, with this feature of left or right action, because we can provide both left and right actions. I decided to just leave the right actions. And there is a delete button. Yeah, as I mentioned, what we see right now is the touchable opacity, and there is just a simple text which is presenting the text we provided, and then it's wrapped into swipeable, and that's what's allowing us to render right action and provide some props to this feature. And as we see, we call here render right action, and render right action is an array function that's rendering the red delete button that we see right now and right here. So there's a press handler, so we handle delete, the function provided by our home component to this script list item. And then we just render the view for the button, and there's a simply rect button wrapped into the animated view, so it's animating pretty nicely, and the width is 70. There's absolutely no magic right here. What's more interesting is when we will go back to the home, because as I mentioned previously, there are two models. The one model is pretty simple. It allows us to add new text. So we can just lorem ipsum 2. And as I mentioned, when the string is short, you will see the whole text instead of cut text with 3 dots. As you see, it's able to persist, and it's just added right here, and we see that right here. Okay, so there are two models. The first model is add model visible, and we just render their text input and two buttons, the cancel and save. Cancel just closes the model. Save is just calling handle save, and handle save is just adding this script in utils, as we explained that earlier. Okay, so there's nothing interesting right here, and this is probably a little bit more interesting. This is the second model that we see right here. It's called the settings model, and right here we have two sliders actually. The first slider is the slider which is able to control the font size, because it depends how far you are from the camera. The further you are, the bigger has to be the font, or that's maybe my problem because I have glasses. Maybe I'm just not seeing that too good. And the second one is the scrolling speed, because some people are reading faster, some people are reading slower. There are different types of talking, so we would like to be able to control that. And as I mentioned, there are some minimum and maximum values for sliders, and when we press the save and close button right here, we just call the handle close settings, and then we just set two values. The one is the font size key. It's also imported from the utils, and the second was scrolling speed key. And I also added two simple helper methods in utils. One is set value, so we use async storage to save the value, which is string, and then we also want to get the value, and we return the value from async storage. And as you see, those both things are also called in useEffect. So we get the value font size key, and we parse that because that's int. Same is happening with scrolling speed. And with what is also important in that screen is that we have two actions in the navigation bar, add and settings, and to add them I decided to use layout effect, because that's being called before users see the interface. So I just wanted to avoid the blinking, like you open the home screen and the actions are being presented after like a second or a couple milliseconds, but it's still visible. So we can call, in this case, use layout effect, because that's being changed and being added to the navigation property before users see the interface. Okay, I think we are done with the home screen, and right now, as I mentioned, when we press the item on the list, there's the open script being called, and we navigate to the prompter screen, and we provide a property with the key value, and the value of this property is the text that we want to present. And this is where the whole magic happens. So maybe let's open that, and I will try to explain you in a moment what's happening here. Okay, so at first, maybe let's see what's being rendered. So there's save area view, because we don't want to overlap the face ID and just enable user to be able to play with that. And there is a scroll view, which is this part with the text, and the text is being rendered there. And there's touchable opacity, so we just want to enable user to play and pause the text. As you see, it's scrolling pretty slow right now, but this is how you normally use that. It just seems to be slow. When you're reading that, it's not that slow. Okay, so as you see, the text is mirrored. So we can right now maybe just comment that out. Yeah, so as you see, right now we have a simple scroll view with the text. And what's important for us is to enable automatic scrolling. So when user will press play, then we set is scrolling parameter, the is scrolling variable to true, and then there's also, sorry, I just forgot to mention, we also use effect to fetch the scrolling speed and font size. I didn't want to provide it through the properties because that's being stored in a persistent storage, so it's just safer to just fetch that once again. It's not very slowing down the app. So okay, so we got the all the parameters and we got the text. So the text is being taken from the property provided by the navigation from the previous screen, from the home screen, and we can put that into the text, and the text is actually being rendered within the text tag in the scroll view. But as we want to scroll, I added the use effect, which is depending on is scrolling, and if is scrolling is set to true, then we set interval to 100 milliseconds, so the function will be called like by default 10 times per second to just provide a smooth working. And then we call the scroll method, and the scroll method is using ref container because we have use ref set on the scroll view to be able to access that and modify the offset. And then we just want to scroll to the next offset of on the y-axis, because we are not scrolling horizontally, we are just scrolling vertically. The x is still set to 0, and then we have the scroll offset, which is initially set to 0, and then we add the scroll speed. So we add the amount of pixels that we set to be updated. And yeah, so this is what we actually do. And then there's also handle scroll, because as you see, the scroll offset is by default with the 0 value, and if we will call this method even 1,000 times per second, it will still scroll only to amount of pixel that we set in the scrolling speed. But luckily we have on scroll property in the scroll view, and this is being called every time the position of scroll view is being changed. So then we call handle scroll, and then we updated the scroll offset to be the actual offset of the scroll view. And there's also scroll event throttle. So this is the function that's being called every 50 milliseconds to just check the current state of the scroll view and eventually update that. Okay, so we have it, and if we will now press play, then you see that the text is scrolling. So every 100 milliseconds we are just adding the amount of pixels that we set previously. And to make you sure that it's really working, we can just maybe increase the font size and increase the speed to the 30. It should be visible that it has changed. As you see, the font is bigger, and also the speed of scrolling is definitely much faster. Actually, it might be pretty hard to read that. And what's also important for us is that it's working in the horizontal mode, in the landscape mode, as some of you say. And as you see, we can read that. If we will put the iPhone in front of the camera, then we can read the script. However, if you will put this kind of text in the teleprompter, then you will be not able to read that because the text is mirrored. So because of that, we just have to mirror the text. And when we will go to here, then we add the transformations. So we actually rotate the script. Okay, I didn't want to make a screenshot. actually we add the rotate Y or 180 degrees, and thanks to that our text is mirrored. And there's lorem ipsum and so on. Anyway, if you will put that into the teleprompter, you will be able to read that. We can press play and the text is going on. The good thing about this solution that I used is also that we can just scroll the text if we just missed, for example, one sentence, and then it's still working. You don't have to pause, scroll up or down, and then put it back again. Actually, yeah, it's not looking too good. Okay, this is only working vertically. Yeah, I didn't notice that because I didn't use that in a horizontal mode, to be honest. But anyway, this is something to be fixed. Yeah, and yeah, as you see, we can scroll and control that, and the text will be scrolled. Okay, that's it. That's everything I prepared for you today. I hope you was able to understand the flow and the logic behind the app. Of course, the source code to this is linked down below in the description of the video. If you have any thoughts or any questions, feel free to ask in the comments section. And also feel free to just clone the repository and play with this app on your own. Thank you for watching, thank you for your time, and see you next time. Bye!